it appears in the generator to the ground because our fault stopped as soon as we plugged the generator in. When I left here, we had a wire and a connection on this so we could connect a ground rod, and there is no ground rod here, and there's no wire left here anymore either.
What is that?
So what we want to do,
Where was that?
it was probably laying here, and probably, it might have slid underneath here.
Well, it's connected to the chassis of the trailer here. Down here.
Yeah, okay. So what we don't want to do is go down here. So in theory, this trailer should be bonded to earth. Okay. Right now, we're using the chassis of the trailer like we would on a truck.
Right.
The truck has wheels. It has an electrical system. But on a truck or your car, the chassis has a polarity to it. North America, it's negative. So the entire vehicle is negative, okay? At 12 volts, all right? We don't want this trailer to be energized. We simply want, in this particular case, if there was to be a fault in the generator or in this power system, we want a fault path to earth. And unfortunately, we don't have one here. So the easiest way for us to do that is to give this, when it's by itself, is to give it a fault path to earth. And that means some type of earth connection.
Right, that we can drive in the ground.
Our electrical system, specifically something bonded to our ground. Okay?
Right. And you're saying the trucks normally, even though they have rubber tires and they're not grounded, they have a negative polarity for the whole truck.
That's right.
And that creates like sort of pseudo ground?
Well, no, it's just that it's impossible to create a ground for the truck. So they don't attempt to try to do it. It would be called a local ground. The local ground would be the chassis, which actually has electrical potential, which is the potential of the battery because the chassis is bonded to the negative terminal.
Right.
In fact, you'll find that if you go to your vehicle and you take a LED light, obviously one that runs at 12 volts,
and just touch it to the...
blow it out if it's 1.5 volts or something.
Yeah.
And you connect the negative terminal on the LED light to the chassis, okay?
Or any metal part
and
that's bonded,
on the
right?
positive, run it back to the battery, the positive post.
You'll see a light.
You'll see a light. And you're not on the negative post of the battery, but you're going to see a light because the entire chassis is negative because the chassis is bonded to the negative post of the battery. Okay. In this power system, there is no polarity to the ground. It's just the ground.
Yeah.
And we're using it to bond all the metal parts of the power station with all the metal parts of the generator. And that's a huge problem, and that's probably why we're missing our wire, because they probably both came into here.
Yeah.
And this needs to be tightened. So we're going to make one in here now. I didn't loosen that, by the way, but I would have in a moment. Because I'm going to take this copper line, I'm going to bond this to the rod, which is really inadequate. I mean, this should be like 6 feet long, but having said that, some connection to earth is better than none. And then I'm also worried in this application about someone forgetting we have this
tearing it out,
bonded to earth, and just driving away. If I drive a 6-foot rod in the ground
it's going to pull everything off of here.
It's pulling something, and it's probably not going to be good.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, I'm going to go get some parts that I need because this connector is not going to be big enough to fit around this temporary.
Do you mind if while you're doing that, I unplug the generator just to see what happens?
If you create an alarm, we'll do it. It's not going to hurt. I'm just going to go to
Okie dokie. All right, so now we are not bounded. So technically, if that was the issue, yep, there we go. Right as rain, sure as you see it. How you like them apples? And there's our F8 fault right there. And the alarm is on. Well, that was the answer. And we don't know how or why that happened. Who would have unplugged this? Because it certainly wasn't me and it wasn't you. So now that's back in. Now whether it clears automatically or not depends on, yeah, that's what I'm curious to see. Will it just stop now that it's been plugged in? And then we'll do that same thing once you put the ground rod in and see if it needs the generator connection or if the ground rod will take care of that. Fascinating stuff. Great for learning.
Clear that, by the way.
Huh?
You're going to go into basic,
Yeah.
and then advanced, and then clear arc fault.
Okay. Basic setup. And then
advanced, be careful you don't touch anything else.
Yep, you got it.
Arc fault,
And then clear arc fault.
yeah, and then okay. But don't do it before you plug in the generator.
Generator's plugged in.
Okay. That'll take a minute to clear.
System alarms. So you don't think I need to turn it off and turn it on?
No, it should just clear. Just leave it beep. I could shut the beeper off, but it should clear.
No, I'll be curious to hear when it
might take
clears.
5 minutes, but it should clear itself.
Okay.
If we're connected, it'll clear.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't have a fitting that will fit on that.
No?
So we're just going to take the copper and drive it into the earth, which actually might be better for a
Oh, really?
temporary solution.
Okay.
Because if someone does decide to drive away, it's just going to pull out of the ground easily, right?
True.
So,
And it wouldn't be better just to wrap it around that loop?
no.
Because it wouldn't bond as
No,
well?
That's right. You can't.
And this is not sufficient for it?
No, because I need to connect that to the rod, and the rod's too big, right?
Oh.
And there's no sense in bonding this to another piece of metal. It's metal itself. We might just well use this number 6. This is a very expensive solution to our problem, because this wire is very expensive.
Well, let's use the rod then.
No, it's okay. It is really good.
What about this little rod?
With that,
I have this little rod here.
yeah, we could use it.
There we
Except
go.
it's all corroded, so
Hmm.
we're gonna have to clean it off.
Where was the other piece? Oh, there it is. I see what you mean. So this is too thick, huh?
And I don't have anything here that.
I could drill a hole through this rebar.
Well, by the way, this won't fix the fault, because just because I ground all the metal objects on the power system to earth the way it would be with your ground wire,
Mm-hmm.
that does not provide a connection between the neutral and the ground. So we would still get
Still
this
needs
fault.
something. So you'd always have to have a generator, or you'd have to bond them together
You
somewhere.
have to have it connected to a device that creates a bond between the
Neutral and the ground.
neutral and the ground.
And that's only for 240 volt systems,
That
right?
would only be if you're not connected to the grid, because you violated the rule again unless you open that bond, and you'd have to do that physically by unscrewing something in the generator. So then you'd have a bond in the house, and a bond in your electrical panel in the home, and you'd have a bond in the generator. And now you've created another problem. Okay? So we wouldn't want to do that. So that's why we typically have mobile switches or mobile systems, and we have stationary systems. And how we deal with grounding and bonding is particular to each case. You have a unique situation here where you have a system that works connected to the grid and then on its own when it's off grid, and that creates some particularly complex problems which we're going to try to fix.
You're saying, but there is a setting in the inverter that one could attend to and say, I'm going off grid. I check it now so that it's off grid, and then I go back to the trailer.
There would normally be, but I can't attest to the fact that there is on this inverter because this inverter is designed to be grid connected. Whereas an inverter like a Victron Energy inverter, it's designed from the beginning to work in boats and work in RVs where they're sometimes off grid and they're sometimes connected to the grid. And because of that, built into the device is an automatic switch that will switch from one condition to the other.
Right.
There's no such capability in this inverter. This is a grid-tied inverter, whereas a Victron Energy, and not only is this is a grid-tied inverter that meets the code called UL 1741, which means it's listed for bi-directional energy flow, so you get a credit when you're connected.
Right.
The Victron Energy system does not have the UL listings that would permit it to export power to the grid. And if we had used a system like that, we would have lost the capacity to have this function in the way that we need it to function. Okay, this has gone on for too long.
Right.
So we're going to find out why are we still on alarm. See, we don't have our normal light.
Right. I guess it wants to reboot then.
And this should have cleared. You shouldn't have to do that. See, we just keep getting the same error over and over again in the log. Clear fault.
Is there anything else to clear?
That's it. It's not a battery issue. It's not a grid issue. Well, we will shut it down.
That button really messes me up. There it goes off.
Yeah, you just have to be patient with these because the firmware in the inverter are fundamentally software. There's code that's written to diagnose all the conditions, the normal operating conditions that the inverter should see before it starts up and before it shuts down.
I just turned it back on.
So there's a delay in anytime you try to start the inverter or stop it, and that's why I'm puzzled by why this light doesn't work. The LED is obviously burnt out, so that needs to be replaced. But what you don't want to be doing is cycling this all the time, and because there's a delay of several minutes for it to start up, you don't know if it's on or off, which is kind of
It should be on now. I did press it, so don't touch it again.
Oh, okay. So it'll start up. And what we're looking for before we do anything with an inverter is we want to see it come into normal with no alarm condition. And so this will light up. Right now it's showing it has a DC connection. I heard a relay inside just trip, so I expect this is going to light up any moment now. And once it does, we'll start to see energy flows on the display. While we're waiting for that, I'm going to go put this together.
Okay. Yep, battery's on.
So part of
Solar's on.
process of troubleshooting something is to have a little bit of patience.
Yep. All right. right. And the lights are back on, the Christmas lights. Which was the purpose of all of this.
How's my wife over there?
She's under the bathroom,
Oh,
and I think she's talking to people.
sometimes you forget how important it is to make sure your wife is happy.
Yes.
You,
Tell me
you know
about
the
it.
saying, happy wife, happy life? Well,
Right.
I can attest to the fact that we've gone through periods in our lives that that wasn't always the case.
It's true for all, or most of us are.
I'm going to be able to do this even though I have a small lead. Maybe, maybe not. Oh yeah, we're going to be lucky. So I want to do this in a way so when we hit this with a hammer and we drive it into the ground, we don't disconnect it. And this, I wouldn't show this to too many people, this video,
Mm-hmm.
because someone was really going to lay into me for not doing this with a proper ground rod.
Well, we will get a proper ground rod.
And I'll have to hide. So the next time you have an electrician come here,
Mm-hmm.
say we need a proper ground rod for our inverter system.
Let's try that leaf blower out.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's not going to go in there.
Yeah, I can, oh, just unplug
It'll go
your
over
light.
here.
Unplug your light.
I think this is a 2-prong and this needs a 3-prong. Yeah. I can't do it. It's the wrong cable. I'd need a different extension cord. This is made only for a certain type of extension cord, which I will go get.
Here, I got an extension
You do?
cord for you. Yeah, we can plug one in. There's probably one in one of these toolboxes. Let me just see. Let me put these away.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to guess, TH,
Mm-hmm.
underneath the that yellow lid, or here, right here, right here. It's probably right here. We got an extension. Nope, wrong yellow. These $10 27-gallon containers
They're
at
amazing.
Sam's Club, other than the lids are crap, they're
Right.
pretty handy.
Yes, they are. That
We
won't
can-
work.
that's-
No,
that's
it's
a
got to
lot
be
of power.
single.
It's going to be big time power.
The problem is it's a single end. That will work.
Does that work?
Yes.
Go ahead and blow away, my friend.
All right. There we go. So 720 watts. Yep. All right. Looks like it's all working. We're wrapping it up then.